Wow, I already drank that whole shake? I have this leftover trim piece of hydrothermal grown emerald. I just don't want to throw it away. It really can't be used to cut one stone because it's thin. But so what I did was I'm going to cut it into thirds. So I marked about a third, and then I'm going to trim off the very end piece, and then I will orient it so that this is the flat top part for the stone, and I'll orient it like that so that the culet, the bottom point, kind of is towards the center. That'll give me enough depth, enough length to cut probably, I don't know, hopefully at least 7 millimeters, but anything above 5 millimeters is fine for BOPIE. That works fine in a lot of jewelry, earrings, a 5 millimeter stone. I don't want to cut it smaller than that. So rather than just wasting this piece, I think I can get 3 stones, probably an earring and another piece out of it. Maybe even a pair of earrings the same size, maybe with a Portuguese cut. That'll make some beautiful earrings and an extra piece. So again, I'm going to take it to my trim saw and trim along these lines, and then first I'll trim off this excess, the really thin part, which I really can't use for anything. For now, the Portuguese design is my favorite design for a round gemstone. I have tried several other round designs, and I'll continue to test out other round designs that I find that look interesting going forward. But so far, I personally haven't found a design I like better than the Portuguese. There are a lot of facets to cut and polish in a Portuguese design, and for many cutters, it isn't worthwhile, just isn't worth the effort to cut small stones using this design. But I'm fine with putting in the extra time for that special look of a gemstone cut into a Portuguese design. This particular Portuguese design was created by the late Jeff Graham, and he called it Simple Portuguese because he removed one of the rows of facets for use with smaller stones. And he did put this design into the public domain for all gem cutters to try. Although Jeff's website is gone, you can go back in time on the internet, because the internet never forgets, and download all of the about 24 designs that Jeff put into the public domain. I show you how to access Jeff's old website in a previous video, which I'll put a link to here. For this Portuguese cut, there are 145 facets that you have to cut and polish, and that is about 3 times the facets of a standard round brilliant design, which has 58 facets. But to me, every jewelry store in every mall has many gemstones on display cut into the standard round brilliant or SRB design, but you won't see many displaying the Portuguese design, and especially not in smaller gemstones. So to me, sometimes it's good to do what others are not doing. Okay, I finished pre-polishing the first of our emeralds, and I started out, because it's such a small stone, with a 340 grit topper, and then I skipped the 600 grit topper and went straight to my 12M. Then I pre-polished with my zinc lap with 8000 grit diamond, and now I'm ready to polish, and I'll use cerium oxide and the Creamway lap. Okay, I've pre-polished the pavilion of this emerald, and I pre-polished it with 8000 grit diamond on zinc lap. I probably could have gone straight to polish, but it would have taken it will take a lot more effort to polish it if I went from my 1500 grit lap to polish. So by going to the 8000 grit diamond on zinc lap, you can see it's not polished. There's little streaks on each facet. Those will polish up very quickly. Maybe I bet about 3 or 4 swipes on my cerium oxide, my Creamway lap, to polish those up, and then I'll be ready to transfer this stone. So let me go ahead and polish the rest of the pavilion. Okay, for me, I'm now using my monitor, a separate monitor for my laptop. I keep that behind my fasting machine, kind of a bigger screen monitor, although I'll probably upgrade to an even bigger monitor in the near future. The prices really have dropped. So that's where I display my gem fasting diagram. That way I can, move down to each line and keep the line I'm cutting right at the top of the screen so I don't get confused. I can highlight lines if I want to. If I want to come back to something, I can highlight it. And I think it's better for me than trying to keep tabs on a little piece of paper that always gets wet or wrinkled, or I forget where I'm at. So that's what I'm doing that's how I keep my gem fasting diagram near me. So now I'm going to facet the first row of the pavilion at these instructions call for a 48-degree angle on my index, and I cut every 6 teeth starting with the 96 and going around to the 90. So I set the degree angle on my machine to 48 degrees, and then I lower the mast until the stone touches the lap, and you can see when it's touching because the dial indicator shows it goes up from 48 to 48.1 and so on. Then I start the drip on my lap, and for polishing I run my finger over to make sure everything is wet. And for polishing, I use a really slow drip. I don't want to wash out the cerium oxide that I'm going to spray in. And I keep the Ultratech about 300 RPMs for polishing, which is about that. The Ultratech goes up to 16, the number 16, I believe that's 1600 RPMs. But you don't need that for polishing, just a nice slow polish. And then I use my cerium oxide and water spray bottle. I use 1 level teaspoon of cerium oxide to about a 3/4 cup of water, and good luck for those of you not in the US to translate that to whatever system you use. I'm sure Google can do it pretty easily for you. So I just put 2 squirts on the my lap, and I'm ready to polish. Where it's showing that between 48 and 4801 is where it's hitting the lap, and that's 4 passes, and that should do it. Let's take a look. Okay, so you can see this facet is not polished, but this is the one I just polished next to it, and you can see that it's polished. Only took about 4 swipes. The other one's not polished, so the rest of the tier I need to go around and polish them all up. But again, a good pre-polish gives you a good polish, so I'll continue to work around this tier and polish it, and continue to polish the pavilion of our emerald. Okay, I've got my camera on the max amount of poor man's macro that I've got. And you can see that first row is polished. The second row, which is right here, you can see it's not polished. Still got those streaks. So, and to get this level of magnification for my poor man camera system, I just hooked 4 different macro lenses together, and I bought them on a shoestring when I bought my camera equipment. And I'll show you, I made a video of buying all my camera equipment. So you can get macro for, you know, about, I think I paid about 20 bucks, but I'll put a link here if you want to see that video. When I bought all my equipment, I was trying to see how the minimum that I had to spend to get this camera equipment. So that's maximum macro. I'll continue polishing our emerald. And just by comparison, here's my camera without any of the close-up filters screwed into the end of the lens, which helps me give me my macro effect. So back to polishing. So I finished polishing up the pavilion. It polished right up with cerium oxide and the cream white lap. Now I'll transfer our stone and cut the upper half. I finished polishing up the pavilion of our third emerald, so now I'll transfer it and get working on the crown of these 3 gemstones. Okay, I just finished polishing the table of our, this is the first one I finished. I've still got the other 2 emeralds, the crowns to finish, but this one is now done, so we'll work on the other 2. Okay, our second emerald is ready for me to cut the table. So I'll set this stone up, cut the table and polish it, and then we'll be ready to cut the third emerald, the upper half, the crown. And the table polished right up with cerium oxide in our cream white lap. So now I'll set up, put this stone in the acetone to remove it from the DOP and work on the final emerald. Okay, I'm pre-polishing the crown with my 8,000 grit zinc, 8,000 grit diamond in the zinc lap. And what I'm going to do, I don't think I've got enough rough left to make the next row. So where this triangle comes up and this triangle comes up, this second row where the meet point goes down to the girdle, that was at the 38-degree angle. So the third C3 tier is supposed to be at the 34-degree angle, and I'm supposed to go back to the 96 tooth. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to, instead of going to the back to the 96 tooth, I'm going to stay at the number 3 tooth. I'm going to stay at the number 3 tooth at 34 degrees, and what that will do is make a step. So what I want to do is at the top of these 2 triangles, I want to bring a straight line down all the way around, and then I'll cut the table, and that'll make like a picture frame kind of up around the table. And since I don't have enough rough to have meet points, I think the step cuts at the very end will take care of that. Let's see how that works out. Okay, I finished pre-polishing the emerald, and at last I modified the design, and I just made a step cut with this last row. And now I'll bring, once I polish it, then I'll bring the table down so it'll look like there'll be a table and then a step cut and then the meet points. And it'll make it look like kind of a frame around the table. And the reason I did that is I don't think I have enough rough left to make the rest of the meet point cuts, so I adapted the design. I hope it turns out okay. We'll see what happens once I polish. Okay, I finished polishing the table of our final emerald, and this one has the little frame around it. And I'll put it in the acetone, weigh it, measure it, and then we'll take a look at all 3 of them and send them off to BOPIE. When you're cutting a lot of very large gemstones, a trim saw pretty much pays for itself because it gives you a lot of leftover, kind of odd shaped trim pieces as you cut and trim on your large gemstone and kind of shape it to get ready to put it on the dop. So the question is, what do you do with these odd-shaped leftover, what I call trim pieces of rough? And in this video, I took a leftover piece of lab-created Colombian colored emerald, and I cut it into 3 smaller pieces, and I cut them into round gemstones of about a 1/2 carat, 3/4 carat, and 1 carat in weight. And that's because for BOPIE'S, you can always use small gemstones anywhere from 5 to 8 millimeters in size. So there's no need to waste leftover pieces that you get with your trim saw. Of course, it would have been perfect if I could have cut all 3 gemstones to the exact same size, but it didn't work out that way this time. As far as a round gem design, like I said, I do continue to experiment with various round designs in search of the perfect round design that I really, really like. And if any of you out there have a favorite round design, please let me know in the comments. For now, the Portuguese design is my go-to personal favorite for a round design. But again, I'm happy to experiment with other round designs. Always looking for something new, something interesting to cut on. So also, I did modify the Portuguese design with my 3rd gemstone because I didn't have enough rough left to make the extra tier. So I turned one of the rows right below the table into a step cut. Now, to make a step cut, all you need to do is you use the same exact index teeth as the previous row of facets that you just cut, and you just change the angle on the mast. That gives you a step cut. That's simple. And I like the way a step cut kind of frames the table. I think that looks very unique to me. So please let me know in the comments what you think of the gemstone where I modified the design and made a row of step cuts and kind of framed the table. And as always, happy faceting, everyone.